worked as a scientist and with scientists from different backgrounds and in different capacities. I'm now sharing the backstory of leaders and professionals within the scientific community. We invited Dr. Ambily Banerjee, a geneticist and director for global regulatory affairs at GlaxoSmithKline, to MindTorch's speed mentoring event at Brunel University, London. Immediately after the event, I asked Dr. Banerjee for an interview, which she gave me on the spot. Thank you very much, Dr. Banerjee, for this opportunity to interview you for members of the scientific community. I've divided the interview into 4 parts, and I'm going to start with an icebreaker. Can you tell us what you'd take with you if you were stuck on a desert island?
Okay, so the first thing I would take would be my daughter. She's entertainment packed in one. I'm with her around. I don't need a radio or a TV or a phone, because she will talk and talk and talk until I want to run away from the desert island. So the other item that I have to take are post-it notes. I'm a list writer, so I would take a pen and a post-it note so I don't forget anything.
I'm like that as well. I make lists every day.
Every day, yeah.
And then the night before.
And the joy of ticking them off.
Exactly. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite film?
So my favorite film is an Indian film called 3 Idiots, which is a very socially powerful movie about following your passion in life and not being forced into a career just because your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer, but actually following your heart and doing something you're passionate about, and you'll be successful in it because you're passionate about it. So
that's really good.
That's good.
Definitely encourage our students to watch that.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Especially if they understand Hindi, I think that would be helpful.
Oh, good. If you were to liken yourself to a TV or cartoon character, which would you be?
Cartoon character. Probably Peter Pan. I love staying forever young, so probably Peter Pan. And the fact that you can fly is just an added bonus.
I agree. Forever young.
Yeah.
At heart.
Yes, at least at heart.
Yeah. Please, can you tell us the last book you read and why did you enjoy it?
Okay, so I tend to start a lot of books, but sometimes I don't finish them. But the last one I really enjoyed and finished was called Winning. It's by an author called Jack Welch, who's the CEO, or was the CEO of a big company called GE Electric. And this book is about his inspiration, his thoughts, his advice on how you can succeed in a business career, and why businesses succeed and don't, and how to be a good leader. So very much things you can apply to your own life if you want to be in that kind of environment. So
I'll add that to my list to be inspired by. And what is the funniest thing that has ever happened, either whilst you were a scientist in the lab or at GSK right now?
Gosh, GSK is a fun place to work, but I can't say it's very politically correct, so there aren't any funny incidents that I can talk about at GSK. Stupidest thing I've ever done is probably say thank you to an ATM. So my husband always kind of reminds me about, do you want to say thank you to it? So yeah, but not necessarily funny for me.
Okay.
Funny for others.
That's easily done, money out. Thank you for that.
Exactly. Someone's giving you money, why wouldn't you say thank you?
Yes. Outside of science, what do you do? What do you do for fun?
Okay, so I love painting. I'm not good at it, otherwise I might have gone down a different career, but I love mixing colours and seeing the different colours that come out. And luckily my daughter also loves painting, so it's something we share, and we can spend an afternoon pleasantly doing that. So that's my favourite pastime.
That's really interesting. I actually was trying to get into that myself, but then I realised that maybe I should find a different hobby, so we'll go with that.
You don't have to have talent, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not talented.
Oh, there's hope.
There's hope, definitely.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm now going to go over to your academic and professional career.
Sure.
First, I would like to say thank you very much for all your support to me and MindTorch, and particularly for bringing us to Brunel University today. I'm very aware that key connections and introductions are essential on your journey to success, and I'm very grateful for your help and support, and especially for coming today and taking some time off.
No problem.
Thank you. Can you tell us your title, name, and position, please?
Okay, so my name's Ambily Banerjee. My title is Director at GSK for Global Regulatory Affairs.
And you're also a scientist.
I am. My career started as a scientist before I came into GSK. And I'm still a scientist to a large extent because we work on developing medicines, which is very much science.
And can you give us a brief introduction or a brief summary of what you did as a scientist and how that is impacting on your current work?
Okay, so I started as a biochemist, and after my degree I went straight into a PhD, so very much in cancer biology. Spent about 9 years as a postdoc at Imperial and UCL doing research in the lab. While I was at Imperial, I decided I wanted a career change because I got frustrated with academia, with the short-term contracts, the fact that I was having to compete with people who could work 24 hours a day, and I didn't really want to work that hard. I wanted to still have a good work-life balance. And so I started looking around, and I thought I have to try to get into industry. And I tried to get into industry and failed, I would say. You know, I couldn't get a role. And then when I was at UCL, I networked. I talked to people about what I wanted to do, and someone suggested a role that I could do as a business consultant on a part-time basis, and therefore learned the skills I needed to get into industry. So when I applied to industry then, I was coming with an understanding of what industry we're looking at, and moved to GSK about 8 years ago.
That's a really amazing story, because a lot of scientists in their postdoc years are always wanting to make that transition, and it's really good to hear your practical example of what you can do to actually get your foot in the door.
Absolutely.
And how did you find that going from academia into industry? Was it a very big shift for you in terms of your work?
So it is a big difference in the day job, because obviously in the lab you're very much mixing chemicals, looking at cells. It's very practical. What I do in my current role is very communication based, I would say. You know, we talk to people about strategy and how to develop a product, and we are talking through emails, through presentations. So it's a different day. It looks completely different on paper, but the skills that I use, it's the soft skills that really matter in the career. And actually the skills that I'm using today are the same skills I was using when I was a scientist, which is teamwork, communication, presentation, being proactive, enthusiastic about what I'm doing. All of that, being organized, meeting deadlines, exactly the same skills no matter what role I'm doing. So transition's difficult, but the skills are the only things that you're taking forward.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you for that. In terms of, doing what you do now, how can a young scientist actually get into such a role? For example, if someone enjoys talking to people and engaging with other people, but they have the scientific skills, what can they do to get into such a role in the industry?
If they do have the scientific skills?
Yes.
Okay, so getting into industry is just about how you sell the skills you have. That's the mistake that I made when I couldn't succeed, was I was selling academic skills to industry, and that's not what industry is looking at. What industry wants are the skills that industry is interested in, which, like I mentioned, teamwork, communication, those skills. And I wasn't selling those the way industry wanted me to sell them. So it's just about packaging your skill set in the way that the job description asks you for. So the job description tells you everything that company wants from you. So it's just making sure that you are then selling how you are meeting those skills so that they can't say no.
Okay. That's really good because I think I made the same mistakes. Excuse me. Early in my career, when I was trying to either decide whether I was going to go into the industry or even, consider business consulting.
Yeah.
So that you're absolutely right in terms of how you sell your skills, because that's the consistent thing. So with MindTorch, our vision is to foster collaboration across different scientific, medical, and health fields. How do you think that would work in the future, for example? And do you think we can find, different experts to work with so that we can actually work together as a team, like you said, collaboratively to, find the solution to patient problems quicker? Do you think there's an innovation that can help? Or do you think we just need to rely on what we do at the moment, which is, meeting people randomly?
No, I mean, you're talking about improving the lives of people, bringing innovation, and a lot of people are interested in the same problems, and they're looking at how can we collaborate. So industry are always looking to see how can we collaborate better with academia. We can't do all the innovation in terms of research, so we're looking at that. Industry works very closely with the health service because what we're delivering is to the health service. Would that be fit for purpose? So there's collaboration happening. We might not see it because a lot of things happen behind the stage, but there is lots of collaboration happening. I would say we should all be collaborating, and we should all be seeing what we can do for our communities we live in, for the people we interact with. How can we contribute to society? We should all have that mindset.
Thank you for that. And part of what we do when we bring people together at events is to bring people from different walks of life to engage and to meet one another. We always try to encourage our students to build relationships from an early stage so that grows with them over time. Is there anything you'd like to share in terms of that with our students, please?
Absolutely. I mean, networking is a word that people have negative connotations with. They always think networking, you're kind of making use of somebody. But to my point of view, networking is just being honest, having honest conversations with people. Instead of talking to people about superficial things like, isn't the weather nice, or where are you going on holiday? Actually having meaningful conversations, in my life I really want to do this, and being honest with that person, you learn about their interest as well. Yes. Maybe that you can help them. It doesn't have to be that you're telling them stuff so you get something out of it. It could be a mutual thing.
Absolutely.
And I found, like I said, I was struggling to get into industry, and the reason I managed to get into industry was a conversation I had in a pub with a friend of mine who I had met several times socially, but we got talking, and I had listened to some lecture, similar lecture to what I've just said, and I thought, let me have meaningful conversations, and I started talking to her about, what she was doing, and she said she was working with industry, but being at UCL, she was a business consultant. I said, that's really interesting, how did you do that, blah, blah. 6 months later, she came to me and said, I'm leaving UCL. Do you want the job? If you want the job, it's yours. So sometimes, it's that kind of, it may not be apparent immediately to you, but there could be forces at work that could make things happen if you are just transparent with the world about what you want. And part of that starts with you knowing what you want. So having an idea of what kind of job you like. People always think I have to have the full package. I need to know I want to be a nuclear scientist at age 30, That's not what I'm talking about. You just need to know what kind of job do you want. Do you want a job where you're interacting with people? Do you want a job where you are outside in the field? Do you want a job where you're working a lot or traveling a lot? You can then aim to get to that ideal position.
It's really amazing. Thank you very much for that.
Welcome.
And I'm sure a lot of our students will benefit from those ideas you just gave. Okay. Can you tell us a few of your biggest career moments?
Biggest career moments. The biggest one was during my PhD, where I discovered the gene I was looking for. I spent 2 years looking for it, could not find it, and then when I discovered it, it was a big Yahoo! So that was pretty amazing. And probably the second amazing moment was when I got my job at GSK. When I went for the interview, I had goosebumps. You know, when I entered the building, I desperately wanted to work there. I've never felt like that before. So I felt passionately that I wanted to be part of that company. And when I was told, you've got the job, it felt like a dream had come true. So yeah.
Oh, that's really good. I'm really happy to hear that. And to hear that you actually worked strategically towards that, and you felt the presence when you were there to want to be there. So can I just ask, what gene did you find, and can I just ask, what gene did you find, and in relation to what disease, and what's going on with it now?
So the gene we were working on is P53, which was tumor suppressor gene. And what I was trying to do is find the P53 gene in a fish species to use it as a model for environmental toxicology. So these particular fish were found to have tumors, which are called, the fish are called barbel. It's what fishermen love catching, I'm told. So these fishermen were reporting tumors on the fish, and we were trying to understand why are they coming out with tumors, and the reason was because they were feeding at the bottom of the river, so all of the sediments and the toxins were accumulating there. So we thought, if we could study these fish at a molecular level, try and find the P53 gene, and then try and add chemicals to that gene in a controlled environment, see how the gene is mutated, then we could understand, you know, how these toxins were affecting the genetic makeup of that particular gene. When we started, we had already found, or somebody had already found the gene in man and rat and mouse and dog and various species, and even a particular fish called rainbow trout. So we thought my job of finding it in the barbel would take a matter of weeks. You know, we thought it would be an easy job. It took me 2 years, and the reason for it, even though it's a very conserved gene, we are spanning millions of years in evolution when you go from a rainbow trout to a barbel. And we hadn't factored that in. We just thought fish to fish should be easy. But evolutionary terms, the gene was not as conserved in the barbel.
Right.
And so it was tough to find.
Okay.
I have no idea what's happened to that research, because I've moved on so far away from it. So I hope somebody has done something with it.
Let's hope the fish in the barbel aren't all dead right now.
No, they still exist.
Okay, good. That's really interesting, and you actually found the gene. That's remarkable, you know, achieving that in your career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm now going to move on to a different section of our interview. In terms of your career, did you always know you wanted to be a scientist?
No, I was completely clueless at school. I think I switched between wanting to be a teacher one week to an air hostess the other week to a dancer the following week. And to some extent that hasn't changed. I'm still like, you know, when's my next career? But I was clueless, and I was academically quite able, so I did reasonably well at GCSEs, and I enjoyed sciences and English. So I chose those on the basis of I enjoyed them for my A level, and then couldn't really choose between them. I liked biology and chemistry the best out of the four.
Okay.
So I went for a biochemistry degree. Again, didn't do well at A level, so I came in pretty much through the clearing process into university. So no life path. It's just been an accidental path that I've trodden.
Success.
Yes, accidental success. If you call it that.
I'm sure you did a lot of work, you know, maybe not academically, but in other areas, which is why you've been able to consistently move up the ladder and, you know, get to where you are today.
Yeah, I did. I mean, because I didn't do particularly well at my A levels, it was a wake-up call to say, you need to work hard if you want to get something. So when I came to university, I pulled my socks up and did well. So I think that taught me a valuable lesson, that nothing's handed to you on a plate. You've got to work for it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure a lot of students who perhaps maybe are not doing so well at A levels and they manage to get into university will be encouraged by that. So it's not over.
It's not over, absolutely not. And academics is not the most important thing. You know, you bring a lot of other skills when you start your work. So if you're passionate, if you can really bring that commitment and work really hard, you can do well.
Have you had to make any sacrifices for your career?
Sacrifices. I don't really think I have. Not really, because I tend to live my life without regrets. So the only reason I'm umming and ahhing is, I don't know if you ask this question of somebody else, if they would give you a different answer. But from my perspective, I always wanted to be successful and achieve something in life for myself, as well as have a family and all of that. So for me, I wanted to carry on working. I mean, there was never any doubt in my mind. My mum had worked all the time that I was going to school, and I knew that she was a great mum. So I always believed that I could have a family and work. But I've had to work long hours. I've put my child in childcare. She started nursery at 6 months old, which is a young age, and she has had to go to after-school clubs and breakfast clubs and do all of that. So she may feel that some of her time was taken away from mummy because mummy was working. Personally, I think we've had a stronger, richer bond, because the time I have spent with her, I've wanted it to be quality time. So I've spent a lot of time with her to make sure that she doesn't miss the fact that mummy's working. So, you can juggle it, but it's a juggling act.
Okay. That's good to know for a lot of women in different careers, as well as science. In terms of women in science, do you think we can have it all?
I wrote an article about this when I was at, I think it was at UCL. Yes, I mean, it depends on your definition of have it all, I suppose. But if your definition of have it all is having a career and a family life, then absolutely you can have it all. I know many women who have, at GSK, who have 3 kids, and they're extremely successful, and they're extremely nice people, very helpful and very competent. I look at them and think, wow, how do you have 3 kids? I just about cope with 1. So there are people who can achieve much more than what I've achieved, and there's no limit to success apart from your own dedication to hard work and pushing yourself and believing in yourself.
That's very good.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll put that in my
psyche.
Absolutely. I can have it all. Keep pushing.
Absolutely.
There's something I want to ask. Right. So, have you had to endure setbacks along your way, and what strategies do you use to overcome them?
Setbacks, my biggest setback was when I wanted to get into industry and I was just getting knockbacks. People kept telling me I was an academic, too much of an academic, which didn't really make sense to me. I didn't understand what that meant. What I did to overcome it was to actually keep pushing that door and keep talking to people about, do you know anyone who works in industry? How do I get to know that people who work there? How do I develop those skills? And I knew the only way to develop the skills that industry was looking for was interacting with industry folk. So that was my approach. It's always, how can I do it? Not, oh no, someone said I couldn't do it, so now I'm going to sit here and mope about it. You don't get very far if you sit around moping. You've got to keep finding a different route to get to where you want to go.
That's pretty good. So you always look for a way to turn a no to a yes.
Absolutely. And I'll also tell you, when I was 15 years old, the biggest kind of negative comment anyone has ever mentioned was my boss for my Saturday job. I was quitting because I was doing so badly in my A-levels. Okay. I was a year ahead of the rest of the group, and that's why I was 15 and I was doing A-levels and a Saturday job. And my Saturday job boss said, you'll be a failure if you can't cope with a Saturday job, because I was handing my resignation in. Which was a huge setback in terms of knocking your confidence. But again, the way I viewed it is, how can I prove him wrong? How am I going to prove him wrong? People can say what they want, but that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be a failure. So that has driven some of that I want to prove that I am a success. I will be a success. No one's going to say you're not a success,
Yeah.
So that's motivation sometimes. And you've got to look on the flip side of failure.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. Along your way, have you had any mentors help you in terms of supporting you and encouraging you on your journey?
Absolutely. Plenty of mentors. Almost all my mentors have been female. So there's this myth that business women are quite, career-minded and tough and horrible and bitchy and all that. And it's not the case. There are plenty of women out there who are willing to help other women. And I have had lots of amazing people who have pulled me up through my career.
Thank you very much. That's amazing, because I can actually attest to that myself. A lot of my mentors today, and like you, who I consider a mentor, have really helped me. A lot of men, help as well, but a lot of women actually are very supportive and not, like you said, bitchy, as people are led to believe. So knowing that is actually quite key for younger women.
Absolutely.
Actually, I wanted to ask something in terms of what you said earlier. So you said to get into the industry, you have to engage with industry folk. How can a young student today who is, at a university or doing a PhD actually make that connection? How can they branch out beyond academia to actually find the industry folk?
If you look hard enough, there are opportunities. So a lot of companies now do mentoring type evening networking events. So if whatever field you want to get into, there's probably an event. I mean, I've certainly been to some where there are young graduates trying to meet people from pharmaceutical industry that are sponsored by all kinds of people. So I would say keep your eye open for what kind of events there are. You can also reach out directly to people. If you again look hard enough on Google, you will find specific people who work in the area you want to get into. If you drop them an email, because you will find their email address somewhere on Google, the chances are if you make a personal connection, they will 9 times out of 10 respond to you. So I would say do your research and try and find some source where you can talk to people face to face. People don't mind giving you 20 minutes for a coffee chat or a phone call.
That's so true. Very true. What motivates you to keep going? You talked about, proving people wrong as one of your motivators. Do you have any other motivators that keeps you going, especially when things don't go according to plan?
So my motivation has always been do something that you leave a legacy for, do something worthwhile while you're here on this planet. You're one shot at changing something. So that's the key motivator that keeps driving.
Can you please tell us your top 3 pieces of advice for scientists and future scientists to help them along their career journey?
So the first thing is they really need to know what makes them tick. What is it that they're passionate about? What do they find interesting? What kind of role do they want? So a lot of soul searching is the starting place. The second tip is to really learn to sell your skills, match it to what the employer is looking for. Your job description tells you what the employer wants. So you've just got to, rather than sending your CV out to lots of people, tailor it for the 1, 2, 3 jobs that you want, which fit in with what you're interested in. Chances are you'll have greater success with that. The last piece of advice is more for women. We undersell ourselves. We don't act with confidence as much as men do. And I see a lot of young girls who are extremely talented, extremely intelligent, who don't know how to sell themselves. They are very docile and kind of take a back seat and don't respond and not very confident, won't make eye contact. All of these skills are critical. You've got to believe in yourself for anyone else to believe in you. So you've got to learn that confidence. I don't know how you do it, but maybe talk to other female people, maybe talk to your dad, your brother, try and get them to give you some of their confidence. Get them to coach you on how to become a bit more confident and have greater self-esteem. You're good enough. Don't think about all the negative things. Think that you're good enough.
You're so right, because actually, when I finished my PhD, for some reason, I wasn't comfortable using the doctor title.
Yeah.
And I'll sign my name wherever I was, Elizabeth Adelodun. And my dad was like, no, even if you're just parking your car, write your name, Dr. Elizabeth Adelodun. So you're right that men own who they are, and they own their confidence, and they don't make any apologies for it. So you probably shouldn't either.
We shouldn't. No.
Okay, thank you for that. And what are your views on mentoring?
I think since I've benefited hugely from mentoring, there's only one view that it can be, which is it's the only way to give back what you've received, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you. What is the best advice you received, perhaps as a young scientist or a young student, that still holds true today?
Again, it goes back to the confidence piece. I remember when I was a student at school, someone asked me the question, a male teacher said, what do you want to do? And I said, maybe a scientist, I don't know, maybe. Kind of, it was a very, half-hearted response. And he said to me, why are you saying it like that? Say, I want to be a scientist. You're good enough, you'll make it happen. You don't have to be like, oh, I don't know, kind of. And that gave me a huge amount of confidence. And I've had, again, I said most of my mentors have been female, but I've had a lot of male role models who've, again, helped me on that journey to build self-esteem by saying things that have really stuck with me, stayed with me, encouraged me, because they've said positive things about me. It's resonated.
Right. And if you could go back to your younger self, maybe a few decades ago, what would you tell her? What advice would you give?
To do more kind of active soul searching about what you wanted to do, what kind of job you want to do. I might still end up here, but I would have had a better plan. I feel like my career has been a kind of let's see where we go, accidental, as we said. I think it would have been a bit more planned. Okay. Whether the outcome would be different is I can't predict.
Spontaneity actually gives you a lot of amazing gifts along the way. So
absolutely.
You never know.
Absolutely.
Maybe in another life. What time do you wake up?
I wake up at around 6:30.
And what are your morning rituals?
Recently, I've got into watching TED Talks in the morning. One quick TED Talk gets me in the right mood. It's my substitute for meditation.
Okay. What time do you get to the office?
About 9.
What's your approach to emails? Do you email throughout the day, or do you have a specific time?
I block out parts of my diary in the day to do the work, and then the rest of the time I can check emails. But otherwise, you're checking emails and never getting anything done.
What time do you go home?
Around 5:30.
What time do you go to bed?
That varies a lot. Some days at 10, some days at 12, some days later.
On average, how much sleep do you get?
Between 6 and 8 hours.
And what's your weekend like?
It's relaxing, packed but relaxing. Friends, family.
Your daughter painting.
Yeah, exactly, relaxing. Yeah.
And do you have any questions for me?
No, just a request to keep doing what you're doing. I think it's a great opportunity for youngsters to really get this insight, which we all wish we had when we were young.
Thank you so very
absolutely.
much. I'm very grateful, and I wish you many more successes going forward.
Thank you.
And thank you for helping us MindTorch.